You're listening to the Jefferson Exchange on JPR. I'm Morgan Ackley, and now Underground History with host Chelsea Rose.
You're listening to Underground History, a collaboration between Jefferson Public Radio and the Southern Oregon University Laboratory of Anthropology, or SOULA. I'm your host, Chelsea Rose, and each episode we take a deep dive into little-known aspects of history in Oregon and beyond. It's the end of summer, and you know what that means? Archaeologists everywhere are returning from the field and recuperating from our most celebrated rites of passage, the field school. My guests today are going to join me in recapping challenges and highlights from summer of 2026 in our second annual Field School Roundup. My field school spent a month in Grant and Baker counties. Chris Ruiz, the interim director of Archaeological Research Division at the University of Oregon's Museum of Natural and Cultural History, is returning to the show to talk about this year's research at the Applegate House in Douglas County. And Oregon State University professor Dr. Molly Carney is joining us to talk about her field school at Smith Hill in Benton County. So Chris and Molly, welcome to the show.
Hi, great to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, so let's start by doing a very quick sentence or two about the focus of your field school. Molly, you want to go first?
Sure. So we are working with the Oregon Military Department on some of their training lands, and we were initially trying to define site boundaries and also test some sites for eligibility to the National Register of Historic Places. We are going to actually expand that a little bit too going forward, but we're working out on a wooded hillside, trying to understand a little bit more about the pre-contact Indigenous Calipoian lifeways in some of these upland locations, and then also look to learn a little bit more too about some of the first settlers to the area as well.
Great. Sounds super cool. Chris, what were you guys up to this year?
Well, our field school is centered on the property of the Charles and Melinda Applegate House, which was originally built in 1852 to 1856. The kind of interesting thing about the Applegate House is it's believed to be the oldest residence in Oregon that has remained in continuous family ownership since its construction. So there's a lot of family heirlooms and, archives housed at the house, but some of the earliest buildings on the property, kind of their placement remains a mystery. So since 2012, the University of Oregon Museum of Natural and Cultural History has been trying to locate the original claim cabin and blacksmith shop. And so the last couple of years of field school have been focused on that, and also on the history of the property prior to the Applegate's arrival. The Comema Kalapuya lived in the Yoncalla Valley and knew the Applegate. So they had also lived on the property at different periods of time in its history. So
Cool.
that's been the focus of our field school.
And I think this is the third time you've been on the show to talk about this. So people that are super interested could also go back and hear about earlier rounds of seasons. And for the Southern Oregon University Field School, we were continuing our work with the Oregon Chinese Diaspora Project, tracking down Chinese cowboys and early mining sites, and also spending a little bit of time in some of the far eastern Oregon communities that we haven't reached yet. So it looks like our field school topics are covering a wide breadth of Oregon history. So how big were your groups? So my group, we had 8 students, and with staff, we were anywhere from like 12 people up to 20 people at times. So we kind of fluctuated and moved around a lot. What about you, Chris? You guys both had commuter field schools, right? Where you would go home at night and sleep in your own beds?
Yeah, that's right. Ours this year was about 9 students, and then we had 2 field assistants, both from the previous year. So they were both students in last year's field school.
Great. Molly, how about you?
Yeah, we were also a commuter field school, which I love. I love camping as well too, but it is very nice to take a shower at the end of the day. So I really appreciate that this time around. We actually had 18 students.
Whoa.
We had a little bit of a registration hiccup, so we just said yes to everyone. And we had 3 graduate students who helped out as well, and then other people from Oregon military came in and out and would just appear. It was kind of cool though, because we also had archaeologists from the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde who came out once a week to share a little bit more about the landscape from their perspective. And so at any given time, we too could have had 20 to 25 people out there working with the students and really introducing them to a lot of different career pathways, which I absolutely loved for their educational experiences.
That's amazing. Yeah, and we were camping and all eating together and living together. Sometimes had showers, sometimes we had a lake. But one of the things that I'm very jealous about the commuter style is for the second time we were impacted by wildfires and all the
Mm.
fires that have been like record breaking in Oregon history in that area kind of started when we were working out there. So the final week, we couldn't camp anymore. It wasn't safe because of the smoke. And
Mm.
Eastern Oregon University, a little shout out to them, they heard about our plight and welcomed us so generously into the dorms so that we could continue the final week of field school safely and get out of the smoke. But I would say the thing that the students were the most excited about was the showers and the laundry. So I was relieved to have clean air. They just were like, "Oh my
Yeah.
God, showers and laundry." So there is the benefit to that. But one thing too is I think that the commuter schools are really great for accessibility, and they can offer opportunities for folks who might have a hard time just like picking up and going away for like a full month. Have you guys
Yeah.
found that it increases the folks who are able to access your programs?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one big thing is students that want to maintain a job, they might want to, have an evening job and or weekends. They're able to do that, and a couple of our students were able to do that, and that was, I think, a big deal for them, and one of the reasons they wanted to do our field school.
Yeah, I think I agree with Chris. It's amazing at increasing accessibility. We've had folks with families who have elder care, and it makes it possible for them to still do the field school experience, which is a prerequisite before taking on a full-time archaeological job. We also had people even fly out and stay in some of the dorms here in Corvallis. And I think that was fantastic too, because a lot of people might not have experience or comfortability even being outside. And I like to say archaeology is for everyone. So it allowed a little bit of an ease into working outside. I think that is really fantastic too.
Yeah, that's great. We're looking at possibly thinking about something like that next year for us if we can find a local site. But first, you are listening to Underground History on the Jefferson Exchange. I'm your host, Chelsea Rose, and today we are talking field schools. Okay, so I want to before we get into like the biggest lesson or highlight or find, I want to hear what the craziest thing to happen was, if anything, any big curveballs or surprises or things like that. Chris, you want to go first?
Oh, geez, this is a tough one. Yeah, I don't think anything crazy happened. We had a couple hot days and because we're a commuter field school, we actually got to retreat to our labs in Eugene and do some workshops, like on
That's
historic
cheating.
artifacts.
That's cheating.
Yeah, yeah. So sorry, that's not too crazy, but yeah.
Molly, how about you?
We had a thunderstorm when we were out working out there, and we're in the woods. So as soon as I heard the thunder, I said, like, get out. We'll come back for everything else. You guys are the most important part of this entire project. While we were waiting in the vans for it to pass, though, we saw a lightning bolt strike in a nearby field, and it started a fire.
Oh my
Which was so crazy.
God.
So I sent everyone home immediately, and then I, just called the fire department and they managed to put it out. But you think about all the potential things we need to plan for field schools, and so you were impacted by fires too. And so we all
Yeah.
are facing this climate change reality,
It
unfortunately.
it's nuts. And 2 years ago, we had to leave early because not only is smoke, but 3 of our 4 ways in and out were blocked off, roads were closed. And so last year I was like, we're going to the coast. So we spent the last 2 weeks on the coast and we got caught up in a tsunami warning. So it's like there's nowhere safe. And the students were way more freaked out about that. So I was like, all right, there's just nowhere good to go. But my school, we didn't have a fire breakout right by us, but we ended up catching looters and had to have
Oh,
the
wow.
police come out, which was really interesting and something I hadn't ever experienced before. So that was a very big thing for the students to watch unfold in real time. So I want to hear too about what the most exciting thing, maybe it's not the same as what the students found was most exciting, but for you as like the project directors, what did this year's field season really help you move forward with your research on? Molly, you want to go first?
Sure. We worked with Historical Research Associates, and they taught us how to use magnetometry. And that was amazing. So we collected all of this geophysical remote sensing data, which tells us where people might have had fires or there might have been organic material accumulating or potentially metal. And since we were on military lands, we steered away from the metal just to be safe. But it actually worked beautifully, and we identified several features just right on. And so that to me was the most
Wow.
exciting part. I think the students liked all the projectile points that we found. That was probably their most exciting part.
Do you ever have to worry about like unexploded ordnances or anything like that?
We do. Yeah. So
Oof.
that has been a learning curve this season and just trying to figure out. We had a few potential scares and it turned out to be a part of a car. So we worked out all right in the end. But there's no record that they were actually shelling this area, but we still want to be very careful about it since it was former World War II training lands.
Yeah, good plan. Good plan. Chris, how about you?
Well, yeah, I think one of the most exciting things for me as we were digging these units where we think the original claim cabin is. And this year we had another unit that we think defined another edge of what we think is just basically an earthen floor, the remains of an earthen floor. So just basically a hard packed surface. But we've been sort of following it in different units throughout this area. And this year we kind of continued to define, an edge of what we think is a cabin. So, and, on top of this is all the artifacts were pretty consistent with what we'd expect from an 1850s cabin, and mainly domestic material. So out in what is now an agricultural field. So it seems like we're in the right place.
That's cool. So, and looking forward to maybe doing another round next year, you think?
Absolutely.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. So I want to ask you guys, because I'm very curious about this, what is your post-field school self-care routine? When you're coming back from like a really intense month, wrangling all these different things and keeping all these plates spinning, what do you do to unwind?
That's such a funny question, but it's so true. I hid inside for a few days and just like read books for fun. That was for me.
Good. Chris?
Yeah, I think we went camping almost immediately after that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And just kind of stared at the water.
Yes. There's
for hours on end.
A lot of staring off into the middle distance when you're not responsible for all these people anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
what
awesome.
about you?
Yeah, so I feel like I'm still trying to find time to unwind because at first it's like the chaos of like bringing everything back. But I think, like sitting out on my deck with a cocktail and just like chilling is what I was looking forward to do and hoping to do some more of before summer's over. So what happens next with your various research? Are you writing reports, doing talks? Like how can our listeners follow along and get to know your projects and where they head to next? Molly?
We're still cataloging because we found so much in the field that we were a little overwhelmed. But we'll hopefully have some updates coming this spring. We'll be able to share some reports, and I'm building out a website too. So if you keep track of our ecological archaeology lab at Oregon State University, we should have a formal website in the future too to stay up to date with what we're working on.
Great. And you're planning on doing a field school next summer as well too?
Yeah, we'll be out there for at least the next 2 summers.
Oh, great. Cool. And Chris, how about you? Where can people hear more about this research?
Well, we have a small portal on our museum website, but I think we'll be updating that with some new information soon. And then in the fall, we'll be offering some practical learning experience classes for students to, process the artifacts. And then hopefully that'll produce some interesting outreach, maybe social media posts about different types of artifacts we've been cataloging and researching, and I'm hopeful that will be an outgrowth of the field school this year.
And that's a good point is like, archaeologists always say the field part is like in some ways the easiest part because now we have to like deal with all the artifacts and all the paperwork and everything that comes back into the lab. So you're lucky if you've got the same students to kind of help you process that next phase of it. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's the same for us. We've got a lot of, we have 3 of our students that were in the field school that are hopefully going to be helping to unpack and deal with everything. And we brought back a really huge artifact, a really big piece of penstock, which is like the piping for mining. And I'm like thinking they're like, where is that going to live? But so there's all the immediate challenges as well as the larger things. But well, gosh, it was so great to hear about your work. I look forward to following your projects and having you back on the show next summer after your successful field schools, hopefully less fire. Well, happy processing in the lab. And that wraps up this round of Underground History on the Jefferson Exchange. I'm your host, Chelsea Rose. Show producer is Natalie Golay. You can find this episode and many more at jeffexchange.org or wherever you get your podcasts.